Welcome to the virtual pool. My name's Lorna Crust and I work with Marjorie McClure Special School in South East London. Marjorie McClure is a lead inclusion school and our remit is to provide leadership and competition opportunities for young people with SEND. The virtual pool supports our deliverable of providing training and support for schools and teachers. I'm joined as always by Alison Bell, founder of SwimPix, and she's typed our details into the chat. If you're watching this recording, then if you want to know more about us, then please visit aswim.uk, their website. We've delivered a variety of training opportunities to support the aims of this group, and you can keep up to date and watch previous recordings by joining the closed Facebook group, which is a virtual pool, and you can also access them on ASWIM UK website under the training page. Today's meeting, we're delivering in these, we're going to delve into sensory swimming with the aims. So the aims are, what is sensory swimming? So we're going to be looking at what exactly is it. We're going to be looking at how you can include a sensory aspect to your swimming lessons or your swim program, and looking at the benefits of why is it good? Why should we be thinking about sensory aspects in our lessons? Swimming, we have some lovely ideas there, and exactly that. We'll be focusing on in today's meeting the senses that can be stimulated through swimming. It's worth remembering that we do have the senses of smell and taste, but they're not necessarily senses that we would incorporate specifically into our lessons. But they can, it's worth remembering, they can impact a person's feeling about the activity of swimming. For example, the unique smell of chlorine, we all get that whiff when we walk into a swimming pool, and other smells can be off-putting, along with that taste of the water when they're learning about aquatic breathing. Getting water in the mouth can be quite nasty compared to what swimmers would normally taste and put in their mouth. So though this workshop is focusing on how we can add sensory stimuli into our lessons, it's also worth considering that sometimes sensory overload can be overwhelming or detrimental to some individuals. So we might want to go after this workshop all singing, all dancing. Let's focus on physical, audio and visual and stick it all into our lesson. But some swimmers might go, whoa, this is way too much for me. So we're going to focus today on looking at the first three senses on this slide. That is touch, the physical, the tactical, the audio senses and the visual senses. And we're going to look at how we can stimulate them into our lessons to make learning fun, varied, and of course, purposeful. So let's have a look at this physical, the tactile sense first. And we're going to explore that through the physicality of water, through equipment, and through support. So the first thing to consider about, even though we all work in different pools, what is the same, irrelevant of what our pool looks like, is the water. Sounds obvious, but just consider the sense of the water, that the impact on the senses, the weightlessness of being in the water, being wet, experiencing the support of that water, that lovely upthrust you get from being in the deeper water, in water full stop, the balance, the movement, and of course, I think someone mentioned that in chat about the kinesthetic feel of being in the water is so unique to swimmers. So our challenge as well is to also be aware of our own pool and consider the sensory environment it creates. So think to your pool and consider the depth of the pool that provides different experiences. You might have diving boards or blocks that creates a magical physical experience of jumping off a higher height into the pool. The shape of the pool, again, leads to lots of different sensory experiences. Does your pool have rails along the side, or is it deck level? Because that again gives a different experience for swimmers. And finally, when we're thinking about water, the temperature of the water can impact the swimmer's learning. Too cold can be an absolute disaster in terms of tenseness. And I've just been to a conference, fascinating conference with a top coach over from Australia who talked about tension is the enemy when you're teaching swimmers how to swim. So if you're really tense, you can imagine that density of the muscles increases, you're less likely to enjoy it. It can be very demotivating. while a warm pool can relax a swimmer and make it much more enjoyable, which leads to productive learning. So that's just considering this amazing environment that we've got access to, and we give loads of sensory opportunities for our swimmers who come to our sessions or to our swimming pool. So another physical aspect is the equipment, the types of equipment. There's a whole range of tactile sensory equipment that can promote a variety of core aquatic skills and motivate our swimmers. Floating is in itself a glorious stretch to the senses. Just being in the water and enjoying it can be blissful. And for some swimmers to enjoy the physical sensation, they may need aids, of course. So thinking about the aids that will support this is noodles, extremely supportive. And those who've attended our previous workshops know that they can be used in a variety of sensory ways, such as being tied in a knot, using two at a time, like this photograph shows. It's also worth noting that some swimmers hate the feel of this sort of material of the noodles or the rafts or anything you might be using. So you may need to adapt and think of a different piece of equipment that can develop that sensory aspect of being able to float in the water. So at my school, we've got these wonderful flotation mats, and these balls support the body while keeping it slightly under the surface of the water. The balls in itself mold round your body, as you can see here. So you get that wonderful, secure, nurturing feeling, as well as that feeling that floating in the water. We've also invested in additional floats for our musical hydrotherapy that could be useful for all swimmers to experience that wonderful weightlessness of being in the water. Many swimmers enjoy the sensory feeling of being under the water. So when we think about submersion skills, I'm sure many of you have, or my teachers say, oh, so-and-so just loves being under the water, particularly if they're on the autistic spectrum, that sensory feeling of being under, immersed, submerged, the stillness, the quietness, the play on the lights is just wonderful. Some swimmers, however, might be a bit more fearful. So when you're developing that feeling of submersion, these rain clouds, so this one's a little plastic one, a really lovely sensory piece of equipment to utilize for swimmers to get that feeling of water on their bodies, perhaps because they can't go under, or that feeling of developing that submersion skills. Little video clip here, just showing the rain clouds again, and a sensory aspect of even just manipulating them and getting them to switch on and off. So again, easily bought on Amazon, or just Google rain clouds for swimming or bath toys. Another piece of equipment might be creating tunnels with noodles. Whenever I've put a tunnel into my swimming pool, it gives that wow factor. So when swimmers come into that physical arena of the swimming pool, they go, wow, look at the colours, look at that physical aspect of the water. So we've added a tunnel that gives that sensory feeling of enclosure, along with a change of pool perspective. So they're great fun. We even had a Jubilee one there with our flags that adds another sort of a sense of enclosure and going underneath it. Another piece of equipment you might want to consider are scarves. So scarves can be a great stimuli, physical stimuli. With Christmas coming up, for example, I like to get a little scarf and tie them around the coloured bricks to make them look more like presents. And we go around collecting presents in the pool. I've used big scarves to cover a rainbow tunnel to create a cave. So if I'm going on a shark hunt, based on I'm going on a bear hunt, for example, or I've created a tunnel and put a scarf over the top that becomes a cocoon in the hungry caterpillar. Scarves can create a physically sensory pool area, and swimmers, so here, can weave in and out of these aerial tunnels. We're lucky in our pool that we've got this rafter up here that we tie the ropes to, so we develops aquanastics. So we get hanging ropes that swimmers can then swing and climb on, that really develops a sensory feel of swinging as well as being in the water, so skimming the top of the water. And another piece of equipment, this slide just shows a variety of fun tactile equipment. So you've got tactile balls. I know we use a lot of soft balls for teaching mini water polo, but why not add some balls with a spiky sensation? It makes it feel fun, particularly when you're developing fundamental movement skills of throwing and catching. You've got the floats can be used in a variety of ways, and even things like touch, high-fiving each other. It's that physical tactile approach to a lesson we might not consider. I do a lovely, after a race or a relay, where I get swimmers facing each other and they go towards each other and shake hands and then cross over. So they're actually physically shaking hands with one another. And I develop that by perhaps getting them to go underwater, shake hands. And if they want a challenge, they push and glide and shake hands underwater. Couple more video clips we've got just to show some different types of sensory equipment in terms of physical, whole variety of plastic toys that you can use. I've actually got a variety of fish that are pairs, and they have to go around matching the pairs, and then I get them to squeeze the fish to create the bubbles, and then we have a bit of fish wars where they squirt each other. And then finally, another piece of equipment are the sponges, which are really tactile, lovely feeling, but also you can develop that submersion skills where they can get the sponge and put it over each other's heads. Finally, thinking about the physical, we've talked about equipment that can support swimmers, but also the support that we give the swimmers can create a wonderful sensory time for them and give them that security as well of having you supporting them. And I'm just going to share my boat lesson with you. So again, I might have a physical boat on my pool side just to give them that sort of imagery of what I'm trying to do. And then I might get them, the first bit of the lesson is to become a sailing boat where I support them under their shoulders and I pull them through the water, and I'm working on that body position with the ears in the water. And I'm getting them swaying through the pool like a lateral deviation. They're getting a lovely stretch along the side of the body, but they're getting that wonderful feeling, sensory, kinesthetic feel of being swaying through the water. We then develop rowing boats. So we keep our legs still. We're still working on that body position, but we've got our sculling action going at the side of our hips. So the sculling, and we add a song, row, row, row your boat, just to add that little bit more sensory approach to the lesson. Then our third boat is our motor boat, where we get them kicking wildly across to the other side of the pool, which obviously they're making as much noise as they can. And then I get them to choose. So I'm giving them a little bit of ownership, and they can choose what they would like to be, what boat, and they perhaps whisper it in my ear, or they don't tell me. We've got to guess what their boat they are. We then combine it all to make them into a wonderful back paddle swimmer. So we've got our body position, our ears in the water, we've got our sculling action going on, and we've got a little kick with our legs. And then we develop that by creating physical gondolas, tying two noodles together at one end. We have a gondola race, and then obviously submarines where we can develop some submersion skills. So that's just a template of a lesson that works well, that develops that physical, that sensory aspects of the water, as well as developing back paddle. Okay, moving on now, we're going to look at audio stimuli. So the acoustics in the pool full stop are very sensory. The echoes, the vibrations can all be really stimulating. And I'm sure we've all used song in our lessons. Music may be trickier in your setup, but consider, and Allison's going to talk about that a little bit in a minute, but consider equipment that can be used within your lesson. So what equipment could you use? I'm just going to show a little clip now. And I just want you to look at the spoon, because spoons, actually, I'm just going to let you watch it. Have a watch. Okay, so in that clip, I'm just going to show again, you've got your spoons. Alison's a big fan of the spoons. Tapping onto that step enables them to hear that rhythm that you want under the water. You've got song, and you've got lots of different types of songs that you can use for different age groups, and you've got the whistle as well. And I've used in my lessons, I've used tambourines in my lessons. Scottish dancing is coming up, Burns Night. I'm not even Scottish, but I do love a bit of jigging on the side, and TAs on the side are doing it all. So Verity with your lovely TA there. And we've also got lots of movement, rotation music going on linked to that theme. I'm also lucky enough to have underwater speakers in our school, and with the underwater speakers here with liquid vibration, this is Joel here testing, doing a sound check for our speakers when they set it up in our school. And this little boy loves nothing better. He's on the autistic spectrum, and he discovered these speakers and he pulled them up and he was just putting them to his face, to his ear. He was licking it to get the vibrations. So that's just the other end of the version of using sound in the water. I think as well, it's important to also recognise the importance of silence. So although we're talking about audio stimuli and we all go, brilliant, let's do songs, let's do music, let's get everything going on, I think it's also really important to consider the importance of children experience silence. So just letting them be at the end of the lesson and enjoying the flotation and that physical sense of the pool and just being quiet is really important and something to consider for your lessons. And I just want you to, before I move on to pass on this, I just want you to close your eyes and listen to this sound and think how you could utilize this silver foil blanket, which we've all got in our pools, within your lesson to develop some audio stimuli. Okay, have a listen. Any thoughts? Well, I'm going to tell you what I use it for. I use it for autumn leaves. So we have that because it sounds like you're scrunching through those autumn crisp leaves. And I've developed that with a hoop. We put different colour balls, oranges, reds, greens as the autumn colours, and then we kick them out. It could be the fire of a bonfire linked in with bonfire night, because it's a lovely sound, isn't it? And it's something also very physical about scrunching that up. So it might be something that you could utilise in your lesson. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Alison now, who's going to just finish off this section on audio stimuli by talking about licensing. Thank you, Alison.
If you're going to use music, there's a few things that you need to be aware of, because I have had someone come and sit in my aquafit session. This was a few years ago, and it's the music licensing people. So if you are using music, there's two licenses you need to be aware of. The first one is PPL, and this is the music that you're playing. So you need to make sure that the music you're playing either has PPL license or you have one, or it's PPL free. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second one is a PRS license, which is the venue. Really, that license belongs to the venue where you're playing. What you can do, I've put this up. This is a screenshot of the people. PPL and PRS are now joined, and that's happened in the last couple of years. So you can Google them, they come up, they're very, very helpful. I teach artistic swimming, and what I do is I have my own portable license that I can take around with me, so that I can sort of use the music that I need on those occasions. The only one I would be particularly careful with is Disney Music, because they have an extra license on top of this. So you have to go directly to Disney if you're going to use any of those, which I know can be quite popular, particularly if you've got young children. So that's just something that I wanted to make you aware of. Okay, so let's look at the visual stimuli, and I think this is probably the sense that I use most of all myself. I sort of learned through looking and sort of seeing, but I know if the canoe that you can see under the equipment one there, when I saw that picture, I thought if I saw that, I'd really want to jump on it and be part of that. So just by sort of seeing something exciting can really engage your learners. I'm definitely going to make that canoe because it looks amazing. Think about the equipment that you have, like different sizes, because in the hand, that's going to be sort of feel and touch, but also to see is lovely. I've got this balls here. When I bought these new, they smelt fruity, and over time they have lost their fruity smell, and it's good old-fashioned chlorine smell now. But they're quite nice for sort of young children, and they come in bright pinks and greens and yellows, so that can be really inviting for them. sorry, the next one, demos here, body language, so important. To make sure that you're visual, that you're promoting enthusiasm. So sometimes perhaps on a sensory lesson, we need to think about how are we when we are presenting. Think about the different demonstrations, the ones that you do. Perhaps a pupil can have a sensory feel of actually doing the activity themselves and showing the others. These demonstration dolls visually are engaging, and it shows them exactly what they need to do. So that's just something else to think about. The other one close to my heart really is swim pics. And the thing I'm just going to say to you here is a picture paints 1,000 words. So communication and just visually, they'll be able to pick up what you want them to do. So what we're going to do, we're going to stop sharing because we've found a brilliant video, which I hope you'll find really interesting. And on this video, what I want you to do, where Lorna sets this up for us, I want you to think about, and she actually asks you to do this, is see how it makes you feel. So imagine you're a learner and you've got a teacher in front of you. And I want yourself to think about what you're thinking about, how are you receiving these instructions? What senses are you using and what helps? Okay, so I'm just going to leave you to watch the video.
Hello, I'm going to give you a set of instructions in Norwegian, and I'm going to give you those instructions in 4 different ways. What I want you to reflect on is at what point you understood what the gist of the instructions were about, and at what point you more specifically understood what the instructions were. Also think about how it made you feel as I was giving you these instructions. So, take 1. Først så skal du bade, etter det skal du børste tennene, og så skal vi lese bok. Etter det så skal du kose med bamsen, og til slutt så skal du legge deg og sove. Take 2. Først så skal du bade, så skal du børste tennene, etter det skal du lese bok, så skal du kose med bamsen, og til slutt så skal du legge deg og sove. Take 3. Først så skal du bade, så skal du børste tennene, etter det skal vi lese bok, så skal vi kose med bamsen, og til slutt så skal du legge deg og sove. Take 4. Først så skal du bade, så skal du børste tennene, etter det skal du lese bok, så skal du kose med bamsen, og til slutt så skal du legge deg og sove. And if you're caring for or working with somebody who cannot understand pictures or symbols, then you can always use objects of reference.
Okay, so just write into chat. It's really interesting, isn't it? Unless you speak Norwegian, then you've got a whole different view on the, on your audio sort of side. But I mean, do you want to write into chat how that made you feel? Because I know when I watched the first one, I just thought, I've no idea what she's saying to me. And I was thinking, if I was a child that didn't understand a language, that's how I might feel. The emphasis on words for me made no difference because I didn't know what it meant. When she started using Makatons, and I don't know Makaton, but I kind of got the gist of a little bit. It was obviously a bedtime story, but once the pictures came up, I had a little bit of an inkling of what was required. Does that kind of make sense? So, feel free to write it in. But my point, I suppose, really here is how visually we learn when we can't understand perhaps verbal communications and the actions. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to share back the screen, and thank you for your the actions helped, but the pictures make quite a difference, don't they? So sort of moving on sort of from there, so if we just look at how swim picks can be used and look at what senses can be used just in this picture that we're looking at now, you've got touching, you've got seeing, you've got feeling of the water. And if the teacher who's doing the star float there was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, we'd have sound as well. But there's enough instructions there for a child to be able to communicate, or you to be able to communicate what's going on and have that sensory feel. At the next slide as well, it's the same thing. We've got touch, we're seeing, we've got smell, we've got sight. So all the sensories really are being used there. So we've got a little video to kind of explain again about visually. I had a little girl wore these armbands yesterday, and it was really interesting because having done this, I quite like it when we develop a little workshop, because I kind of start to look at it all more myself. And she was actually had it on her arm, and she's like, she was feeling the shape of the flamingos on there. But just have a look, then I'll explain it, then we'll have another look. Okay, so the armbands I've explained a little bit, speaking for themselves. The flashing balls are amazing, and one of the teachers like banging them to make them flash, and that keeps them interested and excited. But children, because they're visually flashing, they can't wait to get them off the bottom of the pool. So that's a kind of a visual stimuli that can work really, really well. The swim picks that was used, that was a station. So the station was log rolls. They were in partners. So we were visually watching another child, if you like, or another learner doing the activities. We had sensory feel going on, but that partner work and visual. And the sculling one, just to explain this, it's sensory in the sense that you've got communication between two swimmers. You've got the feel of the water. Now, if you scull correctly, you can get a whirlpool on the back of your hand. And what the other swimmer was doing was putting a bit of material. So when that whirlpool became there, she could drop it into the whirlpool and it sucks it down. So it's very visually pleasing. So have another look. There's a little boy at the end's got another there, your station. So it's a lovely kind of fun activity that you can do. So I'm just going to finish off. So swim picks, many of you on the call might know those, but they are engaging. And I think from watching that video, we can see how important a visual aid will be. We do have 3 different main packs for swim picks. So we have a Learn to Swim pack, a schools pack, and a foundation SEND pack. We also have minis, which bridge the gap between perhaps home and the pool or school. And we also have 2 breakout books. The blue one is for the Learn to Swim, and the red one is for school swimming. And there's our website there, and you can always contact me if you want any more information on those. So let's wrap up with the benefits. So hopefully you can see there, there's so many benefits to perhaps honing in on the sensory swimming. We're probably all doing it, but perhaps not being aware of it. So it does add variety. It gives us another tool in our toolbox to give us more tools for inclusion, meeting the needs. It can perhaps make it more fun. And one of the things I know I'm going to take from this is scarves. I think I might get some scarves and see what I can do with those for children. And it does enhance learning. So I hope you've found that beneficial. So just to say what we've done, we've looked at what sensory swimming is, how we can include it in aspects to swimming, and the benefits I think are amazing if we perhaps just focus in on that a little bit in our lessons. So what's next? Myself and Lorna have 2 more workshops before Christmas. We've got one this Thursday on ADHD, from 7 to 8, and we've got one on the 1st of December for dyslexia and dyspraxia. These workshops are £10. It's an hour's workshop. You do get handouts and also an e-certificate. So if you're interested on those, you can go to the ASWIM website. If you want to take a picture of that, feel free, and you can book in through there. So I'm going to hand over to Lorna, and she's just going to tell you what's happening with the virtual pool.
Yep, and before I look at the virtual pool, there is one other conference I'm involved with on the 26th of November. I'm doing a presentation, 11:45, I think it is, just for an hour on cross-curriculum links, more than just swimming. So if you're interested in that, I think you've got to be a member, but just drop me an email. But that's on the 26th of November, a couple of weeks' time. Dates for 2023, we're going to look at how to utilise music, purposely done on January the 25th, so I can just put a little bit of Scottish dancing on there just to show you my lesson plan. Wednesday the 15th of March, we're going to be looking at Spring into Action, we've called it. So we're going to be looking at shallow water diving practices, thinking about spring and springing and jumping and lots of fun activities to do when you think about entry into the water. 3rd of May, we put it on our Facebook group. What do you want? What would you like us to cover? We're very open to suggestions. We've always thought maybe there's a possibility of just networking, getting people to chat, but because we always run short of time on this. But anyway, what do you want? And the big one is Virtual Pool Live. Keep this date in your diary, 30th of June. We're going to have a face-to-face, a Friday, inset day, take time off work, get paid for it, whatever. Come along, because we're going to make it specifically for swimming, SEND included, with main the focus. So we'll have a little bit of marathon going on there, linking to swimming. We're going to have liquid vibration there, swim pics, loads planned. So 30th of June, please keep that date free. And that goes without saying, all sessions are recorded from our virtual pool lunchtime sessions, and you can watch them on the virtual pool Facebook page or the ASWIM UK training page.